Alright, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to my channel where we talk about shiny rocks and tons of money. So today I want to make a video talking about gold and specifically comparing some of the aspects that gold has to Bitcoin, because a lot of people lately in the markets have been touting Bitcoin as the new digital gold. So I just kind of want to go over everything, explain the facts as well as some of my personal opinions, and keep you guys informed. So there's no secret that a lot of people flock towards investing in Bitcoin because a lot of the qualities it has, such as the fact that it's decentralized, it can't be hacked, the supply isn't controlled by any government or anything like that, and those characteristics have led to some people to tout Bitcoin as basically digital gold because it's essentially a safe place to park your money. But there are actually many features that gold has that Bitcoin simply does not. So one common misconception I think a lot of people are having nowadays in regards to gold is its use as a store of value. So gold isn't just a store of value because it's a shiny rock that you can use in jewelry. It actually does have many other uses, specifically in the manufacture of various products such as electronics, medical equipment, and obviously when you have a precious metal like gold, something that we know is limited in supply because there's only so much gold in the world, we know that if it's required for the manufacture of these products, which are going to keep being made into the future, it's pretty likely to increase in value in the long term. Now obviously nothing is guaranteed to increase in value into the long term, but it's this type of derived demand that we can say that gold has, which does make people think that it's a safe place to park your money and a rather safe long-term investment. And this does make it very different from Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, obviously being a digital currency, it's not used in the manufacture of anything. All it is a cryptocurrency which you can use to, exchange money for things. So what's the difference between Bitcoin and any other cryptocurrency out there which can just be programmed to be the exact same way that something like Bitcoin is? Well, in that regard, the real answer is there is no difference. They're basically the same thing because you can just program and create your own cryptocurrency. Whereas you compare this to something like gold, you can't just create your own gold. You can't make gold or something that you want to be gold have the same value as gold. It just doesn't work. But of course, some people will argue that Bitcoin does have proof of concept, meaning that it's been used for transactions in the past and it's likely going to continue to be used for transactions into the future, which is true, obviously. However, that does kind of show that the value of Bitcoin is really driven by the brand that is Bitcoin. A lot of people go to invest in Bitcoin because they hear about it on the news, they hear about all these crazy gains it's making, and they want to get in on the action. That's just part of being a human, that's part of what having FOMO is, or fear of missing out, which can be a little cause of concern, especially if you are trying to label Bitcoin as a safe haven asset, because it can be easily replicated, meaning the functionality of Bitcoin can be created by anyone who just knows how to write white papers for cryptocurrencies. That is a bit of a concern, but obviously for Bitcoin enthusiasts it's not as much of a concern, again because of the branding that goes on behind Bitcoin. Another reason why you can't really label Bitcoin as digital gold, obviously if you look at the price history of Bitcoin, the volatility on it has been insane. Bitcoin has been far more volatile than gold, and a lot of people go to gold because they want to hedge it against inflation, because they don't want to invest in something that, something like the US dollar, which can just have more printed at any point in time by the Federal Reserve. And since gold is scarce and gold is likely to continue to be in demand in the future, again for people wanting to invest in it, people wanting to make jewelry, people wanting it to manufacture products, that type of stuff, it's a relatively safe bet. However, something like Bitcoin doesn't really have the same, future viability to it. So really, if you're looking for an inflation hedge, Bitcoin probably is not your best bet. And yes, they do have a limited supply of Bitcoins that can be mined and put out into circulation. However, if you buy Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation, and then the very next day a report comes out saying that the US government is now going to start regulating Bitcoin and it drops 20% after that, that doesn't really hedge against inflation because it just lost a ton of value. When you're hedging against inflation, you want something that you have a lot of certainty is going to hold value into the long term. Something like gold, for example, for the reasons we talked about, that derived demand it has, central banks buying it, individual investors buying it. You just don't have the same thing with Bitcoin, obviously because it's just too volatile. And you can make the argument that gold itself has been volatile, but if you look at price history of gold, specifically during times of economic hardship when there's a recession going on, it does show that it tends to hold value pretty well. And that's why a lot of people like it, really, because it's a safe haven asset, which has been proven historically to be a safe haven asset. Unlike Bitcoin, where, if you look at basically any point in time, the price history is all over the place, whether it goes up 20%, down 20%. And even if you want to focus on the positives of Bitcoin and say it's a good hedge against inflation because it goes up in value, when you're hedging against inflation, you want something that's going to be stable. You don't want something that even if it goes up in value, that's not really a good function of what you want it to be as a hedge against inflation. However, we do have to acknowledge the sheer newness of Bitcoin because it has only been around since 2009, whereas gold has been around for literally centuries. And it's very possible that the volatility we're experiencing with Bitcoin could at some point in the future just stop, because maybe it reaches a stabilization point where you have more and more businesses that are using it and less people who are using it for quick speculative flip type purposes, and it stabilizes and it becomes an actual store of value and a proper functioning currency. So really, in order to compare the two, we have to really wait probably a long time, maybe 10, 20, 30 years before we see Bitcoin stabilize at a certain price. And we also have to wait to see what governments will do with Bitcoin, because a lot of governments are placing regulations on Bitcoin, or even some of them are flat out outlawing Bitcoin. So we need to wait and see what the governments decide to do and what just general consumers decide to do before we can really accurately compare it to gold. And the whole aspect of regulating Bitcoin is something that I feel is not really talked about enough, especially on social media and a lot of people that like to pump Bitcoin as a great investment, because it is definitely possible. And I say that knowing that all these Bitcoin enthusiasts will come running at me with pitchforks, but you do have to acknowledge the possibility that Bitcoin at some point in the future could very well be regulated or just flat out banned in North America in general. Because if you just look at how much criminal activity takes place using Bitcoin, it is quite a lot, and it's something that the US government is not just going to flat out ignore. They are eventually going to take steps to mitigate that. So why does no one really care about this? Why do, in my personal opinion, I think that no one really cares about whether or not Bitcoin can accurately be described as digital gold? Well, the reason for this is I think that a lot of people are investing in Bitcoin just to be a part of a movement. They see it as kind of a big turning point in history, the first cryptocurrency that really took off, and they want to be a part of it. And a lot of people are obviously going online and bragging about how much money they're making, so obviously there is quite a bit of FOMO in the markets at present time. I do think a big part of the value that Bitcoin has is just the sheer newness of it, and the fact that the person who created Bitcoin is this enigma that no one really knows. I mean, this is my personal opinion, but I do think that if people knew who Satoshi Nakamoto was, then Bitcoin wouldn't be worth nearly as much as it is at present time. But anyways, those are just my thoughts. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm not trying to pump any investment by making this video. I personally don't own any cryptocurrency at present time or any gold. But if you did enjoy the video, then please leave a like and please subscribe if you are new. I do have more content like this planned, and I'll see you in the next one.